Politics and science collide at the White House.
I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure.
The president's statements lead to tensions with medical professionals.
Deborah, have you ever heard of that?
That is a treatment.
And in the states, unease about the economy as another stimulus bill is signed.
States should declare bankruptcy? That's how you're going to bring this national economy back? By states declaring bankruptcy? You want to see that market fall through the cellar? Let New York State declare bankruptcy.
Plus, growing outrage as some governors push to reopen.
Today, we are announcing plans to incrementally and safely reopen sectors of our economy.
I would tell him not to just turn the switch on and go.
Next.
This is Washington Week. Once again from Washington, moderator Robert Costa.
Good evening. As the death toll in the United States surges past 50,000 people, President Trump's assertions about how to treat the novel coronavirus continue to roil his administration. And just hours ago, the president took no questions at the latest briefing following a week of tensions between him and health experts. Joining me to discuss these issues are reporters who have been on these big stories all week. Nancy Cordes, chief congressional correspondent for CBS News. Toluse Olorunnipa, White House reporter for The Washington Post. Jeremy Peters, political correspondent for The New York Times. And Shannon Pettypiece, senior White House reporter for NBC News Digital. Let's start, though, with the news tonight, a short briefing. It was the curt culmination of a long week of presidential claims that were at odds with his own health officials. Here's the backstory. The cracks began to show on Tuesday when Robert Redfield, director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, told the Washington Post that a simultaneous flu and coronavirus outbreak in the fall and winter will actually be even more difficult than the one we went through, and said calls to liberate states from stay-at-home orders were, quote, not helpful. The president then said Redfield had been misquoted, but Redfield on Wednesday said he had been correctly quoted as the president looked on.
Dr. Robert Redfield was totally misquoted in the media on a statement about the fall season and the virus. Totally misquoted.
You were accurately quoted, correct?
I'm accurately quoted in the Washington Post as difficult.
Another flare-up came later Wednesday when Rick Bright, a senior government scientist working on a vaccine, said he was removed from his post for resisting efforts to promote hydroxychloroquine, an anti-malaria drug that has been used by some doctors to treat the virus. The president has been touting that drug for weeks, encouraged by conservative commentators, but earlier today, Friday, the Food and Drug Administration warned that people should not take the drug to treat COVID-19 outside of a hospital or formal clinical trial due to reports of heart issues. But it was Thursday's news conference that remains the most debated moment of this week. The president expressed hope about the power of sunlight to defeat the virus and turned to a science administrator from the Department of Homeland Security to explore the idea. And he theorized about what he called disinfectants.
I would like you to speak to the medical doctors to see if there's any way that you can apply light and heat to cure. And again, I say maybe you can, maybe you can't. I'm not a doctor.
But, sir, you're the president.
Deborah, have you ever heard of that? The heat and the light relative to certain viruses, yes, but relative to this virus?
Not as a treatment. I mean, certainly fever is a good thing. When you have a fever, it helps your body respond. But not as, I've not seen heat or light.
I think it's a great thing to look at. And I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning?
By Friday morning, bleach companies issued a statement warning against improper use of their products. And later today, the president responded.
I was asking a sarcastic and a very sarcastic question to the reporters in the room about disinfectant on the inside.
Shannon, you just came back from the White House to join us tonight, and the reason we wanted to lay that all out is to understand how we got here tonight to this short briefing, no questions, the president not engaging, at least tonight, anymore about hydroxychloroquine, about disinfectants. What explains the president tonight deciding not to take questions and to continue to push the issues he was pushing on Thursday?
Well, for weeks, the president's advisors have been telling him to cool it on these briefings, that they are not helping him politically, and the numbers really reflect that. They just continue getting worse and worse for him when you look at his approval rating, when you look at the number of Americans who trust him to get accurate information. They are not good. So his advisors have been telling him to cut these back, do fewer of them, spend less time out there. And I think this disinfectant light briefing we had on Thursday was really the culmination or the case in point of what his advisors are trying to tell him. They did not want to be spending today talking about whether or not the president told people to inject themselves with bleach, or whether or not light could kill, you could put a light inside someone's virus to kill it off. That is not what they wanted to be talking about today. And instead, they spent the entire day trying to clean this up. It started in the morning with the press secretary accusing the media of misquoting the president then saying that he was being sarcastic. Even Deborah Birx went out. She taped an interview that's going to air tomorrow on Fox. She came out and said that this was just the president sort of publicly musing and having a dialogue with scientists, but in front of the entire public. So the reaction tonight, at least I'll tell you, is officials are hopeful that the president is going to cut back on these briefings going forward and finally listen to their advice. But listen, nothing's over until it's over.
So based on Shannon's reporting, Nancy, we're seeing a political calculation at the White House to try to pull the president back from some of these statements. But there is a health cost to when the president does this. Maryland, the state, it issued a statement saying, please, to its residents, do not use disinfectants on your own body. And you engaged today at the news conference with Speaker Pelosi, who raised health concerns.
That's right. And, what she said is that obviously people should not be injecting Lysol into their lungs. Yet another statement we never expected that anyone would have to make. But this is, this goes beyond sarcasm, obviously. This is junk science, and it's a problem because this is a time when Americans need facts from their government more than ever. And it wasn't just Maryland. It was public health departments all around the country who put out statements, who tweeted telling people not to consider doing this. And the reason that they felt they had to do that, Robert, is because they were getting so many questions from citizens. So, you can sort of laugh it off, but this has real world implications when you've got millions of people watching these briefings and wondering whether they should take this advice seriously.